me ask you a question. If you were a superhero, what Marvel superpower would you have? Well, self awareness is a superpower and it has the ability to change our lives. But sometimes we forget this and we need to be reminded over and over again. In 1992, my life fell flat. When I say flat, I mean that I went into deep depression. I had a broken relationship that ended with a scandal and left me in a depression for about almost 10 years. And 2 years later, incidentally, my mom passed on because she had cancer. She had been battling with cancer for 2 years. And you don't need a soothsayer to tell you that at this point my life went deeper even into depression. Anyway, let's not talk too much about what the depression did. But let's go on now. Fast forward to 1995, I was doing my youth service, and then the depression still went on. I was so bad I became like a thick fog over my life, and everything I did literally came from this standpoint of depression and hopelessness, a sense of worthlessness and rejection. And then I managed to get a job that paid me about 2,500 naira. I'm sure some of you are wondering, how could anybody earn that low? I know a year later, I earned a salary of about 3,500 naira. And then I became almost like a church addict because I thought, well, that was going to solve all the problems. But the depression continued. I lived a life of depression. It was more like a companion. It was my daily companion, more or less. And then, fast forward to 2016 September, and here I was leading a team of over 100 people in a multinational corporation in their group of school where I was actually the head reporting to the board of directors. Having a Facebook group with over 12,000 members from about 58 countries around the world, speaking on reputable platforms, and everybody who knew me then is suddenly wondering, hey, Nancy, what's going on? You have changed. The big question now is, what has changed since then? What was it that I was able to do that got me to where I am today? Self-awareness. That is the superpower. It's able to change your life if you're able to activate it. Self-awareness means that you need to take responsibility for your life. You get to that point where you get tired of blaming people and talking about everything that is not working and how everybody has done this and that to you and how the country is just unfair. And so I'm going to take us through a bit of what actually you need to do as a person to get to that place. The first thing to do is to take responsibility for your life. You stop blaming everybody and you look internally to actually find out what exactly this is about and what you can do to move your life forward. Another is that you need to find out what your temperament is. Everybody was born with a temperament and no one is an exception. I'm melancholic, for example, and that means that my life has its own weakness. Basically, by being a melancholic, my life has its weaknesses and has certain strengths. And so I key into the strengths, and then I start to work on the weaknesses. Another thing you need to do is to have a SWOT analysis of your life. You need to find out what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what opportunities are available, and what threats are. Some of us are actually very used to doing the SWOT analysis for organizations. But the fact is, until you do a personal analysis of your life, a SWOT analysis, you really may not be able to discover yourself. So that's one of the tools you need to have. And then you need to stop feeling bad about what everybody's done and stop taking things personally. Because the truth is, everybody acts at the level of their understanding. And even your mere existence is getting on someone else's nerves by virtue of the decisions that you take daily, because they too are viewing you from their standpoint of who they are. So the same way you're looking at them and saying, you did this to me, I can't even forgive it, I can't move on, they are seeing the same thing about you. So you stop taking things personally. Another is to invest in your personal development consciously by buying books and reading them. investing in courses, the relevant courses and seminars and workshops that will get you to a place of discovering you and bridging the gaps that you have discovered in your weaknesses. Now, it's so common to see people pile up books. I don't know how many of you do that, but there was a time I used to have a stack of books, and I felt really proud to own books. You know, it can be a fad to own books, but it's another thing to read them. And reading them is one thing, because sometimes you can read to preach at people, right? And sometimes you can read just so that you can have good arguments, have the upper hand in arguments. Are we in that place sometimes? Am I hitting it there? Okay, and then but the thing is, until you start practicing what you have learned in those books, the knowledge is not yours. Because you've got to come to a point where you actually practice and own it and begin to apply it in your daily life. And then you also need to invest in a coach or a mentor. A mentor would normally see beyond you because they've been on that journey. I think in my career, my career took a different path when I got a mentor. Even though it wasn't a paid mentorship, my boss recognized the potential in me and was able to say, hey, Nancy, there's an international training I think you need to attend. And that was really the beginning of one of the things that helped my personal development journey. And then a coach will help to unlock the potentials in you by asking you the right questions and help you, bring out that part of you that needs to really be showcased to the world. And you begin to do amazing things such that you never thought you could do. In 2017, I took a coaching program. And I remember at the end of it, when we had to do a few presentations. And then the coach looked at me and said, Nancy, you have an amazing voice. And I want to hear this voice on the world stage. One of the things that sparked up my speaking engagement was the statement that coach made. And here I am today speaking at a TEDx event. So you need a coach. Everyone needs a mentor and everyone needs a coach. And then you need to have a growth mindset. A growth mindset to help you to take hold of opportunities. It will also help you to stop, always thinking that you are scared to take hold on opportunities. You need to have a yes mentality. You need to have that kind of mentality that says, oh, well, yes, I can, and I can try it. And then you need to also go back to your background. We all have our parents and guardians who raised us in the best way that they could. And in the process, they passed on things to us that may not necessarily serve us anymore. This may be a bit hard to discuss in a climb, but some of the things that our parents told us were born out of fear. For example, I was told as a woman, my mom thought it was the best thing to say to a lady, hey, you've got to be quiet, just stay in a corner, let the men do the talking. But you know that doesn't serve me anymore. Because when I had to start taking on leadership roles, I knew that I had to find my voice and I had to speak out. And sometimes I would hear her voice in the background telling me, no, women don't talk, Nancy. You have to stay in a corner. So I had to revisit that part of my upbringing to say, yes, she meant good for me. Maybe she meant I shouldn't be found in the wrong places or speak in the wrong places. But I need to speak when it's necessary. And I need to find my voice. Another thing I was told was that, I just needed to give, and just, of myself and not even know the boundaries. I had to also learn that sometimes you need to draw boundaries. So one thing I urge you to do is to find out the upbringing that you had and then take the positives from what your parents were trying to instill in you while you were growing up and then leave the negatives. One of the positives I've taken with me is never cheat. Always display honorable integrity wherever you work. And in every organization I've worked, one of the key things that is always said about me when I'm leaving, we learned integrity from you, and we didn't know that that was possible in a leader in our climbs. Okay, so if self-awareness has actually done this in my life, I think that it can do a whole lot more if you can activate your superpower of self-awareness.